Thank you, Mr. Mali. And now we come to the most awaited moment for the evening, the launch of the book and also a soft launch and picture of mechanic at the book. May I request the chief guest and Bhaskar but step forward. I think please do the honor of formally launching the book. Ladies and gentlemen, book is available for sale at a very, very special price. Thank you, Dr. Ravichandran. Now I request chief guest for the evening, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt, to share your thoughts on it. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, members of MMA, the managing committee, and of course it's always a pleasure to come here. Apart from the historical impact of MMA, the performance of MMA, I just heard Santanam tell me that every day MMA has one function or the other. In fact, today I think there were two. This is the second function. Sorry? Fantastic. Sure. But to start with, let me break this ice a little. This evening really belongs to Ravi, A and Ravi. So I would be happy if we heard him rather than certainly what I have to say. But let me start with where Mali started and before that Captain Vijay Kumar. There seems to be a mafia here, which is IIT, IIM, and so MMA, FIA, it looks like. That's the way you have projected it, IIT, IIM, this, that, and all. But in relation to this book, let me go back a few months. Was it 4 or 5 months back? About 4 or 5 months back, Ravi came over to Bangalore and talked to me about writing a foreword for this book. Frankly, when we were together at IIT, I don't know about Santanam but some of my classmates here will know, we used to have a derogatory word for our seniors who were not doing BTech. They were doing MTech, forget PhD. They were called Van Loons. Do you remember Van Loon? Van Loon was the author of a chemistry book which was only for the MTechs. So we used to say, that guy, Kaveri Hostel, Van Loon. Okay. So for us, we were young and brash, and therefore a PhD was beyond a Van Loon. It was like a waste of time. Later on, when I thought about it and when Ravi met me, I was linking PhD to golf because sometime, in the middle of my career, people would ask, so when did you start playing golf? I said, I never started. Why? Then I became a member. And then I felt it was even bigger waste of time for 9 holes, 2.5 hours. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't like the game. And then you say, no, I have no time because you don't have any skill in the game. So I used to think maybe golf and PhD are similar. That when you don't have anything to do, you play golf. Or you have an excuse saying golf is for networking in the industry. You meet a lot of senior people and therefore you network. But that one meeting with Ravi that afternoon, I met him because he's a buddy of mine, but thereafter he turned from a buddy to something else. That is what I want to tell you about. I'm not saying it transformed me, but it certainly has changed my view about the subject, PhD. So I'll just be brief. We pride ourselves in this country saying we are intellectually ahead than, the IITs and the IIMs and, they are global institutions and so on and so forth. But what Ravi told me that day about the incidence or the percentage of people who make it to PhD, who finally go through the whole process and get the PhD, is a very small percentage of the number of people who actually try to. It's 124,000 people, of which some very small percentage makes it every year. He will talk about it, those percentages, they are small. And but when you read the book, or rather when I heard Ravi, I realized the rigor that is applied. To that extent, you actually feel a little proud of this country, that we take our PhD very seriously. But this is again not about that. It is about Ravi. I just want to talk about Ravi. After having heard him that day, one is because of the PhD, I think he's very learned. No doubt about it. He's very learned. But chapter by chapter, he's meticulous. You should see what he's been through. Meticulous because you have to ensure that everything is factual and data-driven. He's committed. He's been through some difficult times. He had 2 years of health problems and he didn't give up. He appeared for an exam even when he was unwell. An exam, imagine, 50 years, how many years? 40 years after passing out of IIT, he's written some exam, 9 subjects or something like that. And he topped all of them. Committed, diligent. You have to be very, very careful that the work that you do has not been done before. Number one, and many of you who have done this probably know. And therefore you have to be careful. Your guide can help, but it's your responsibility. Determined and tenacious, and both are similar, but I think more than determination, tenacious. He just held on. So many people discouraged him, and some of them friends. Atanu Ghosh discouraged him, if I'm not wrong, and somebody from the IIT itself discouraged him, saying, not worth it, not meant for you. Professional. Most importantly for me, highly energetic. 4:30 a.m. he would get up, 4:30 to 6:30 he would do work on this PhD dissertation. But beyond all this, when you read the foreword itself, what impresses me most is this reads like, I wouldn't respect or disrespect the other book, but this reads like a spiritual book. He calls it a sadhana. The doing of a PhD is a sadhana, unless, having gone to IIM, I thought I must come prepared, like this is going to be a case discussion. So I must mark all the pages where I have, noted things, etc., etc. I also became rather diligent, But after each chapter, it's not just a summary. It's about what to look out for. 200 of them, if I'm not wrong. 200 of them? 211. See, he corrects. So diligent, so accurate, so factual he is. So, I think it's going to be worth hearing him out as to what it takes to do, as both Vijay Kumar and Mali said, this is going to be of great use to those who will pursue a PhD. And my respect for PhD has gone up, but it's going to take a little bit of time for me to respect golf. So somebody hopefully will come and talk to me about golf and how you have to be spiritually awakened and so on and so forth. Some people do tell me about that. But in all this, finally, I forgot, and this happened really like an awakening for me, on what was the subject of his PhD. Because this book is about how to do a PhD. And that subject is where I want to finish this, my speech, my short speech. Hopefully we'll hear more from him, which is quite esoteric, It's about a subject called CPE, correct? Consumer and ethics. That is, he's worked all his life on consumer brands, and therefore it's about ethicality of rather measuring what is known as the CPE and its effect on, in a way, consumer behavior, brand equity. I guess it's so new and so novel. I mean, we all take it for granted that there is ethicality linked to brands. And it is very evocative for me because I remembered a very critical time. They told you that I'm an ex-director, Tata Sons and all, but more than that, more importantly, I've spent about 45 years in the group. And at a very critical juncture in the group's history of the last 15 years, there was a crisis, and there was this point was very well articulated by the late bull of the stock market, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, when he said, Tatas are blessed by God. They can do no wrong. And when he made that statement at that critical point, he influenced a lot of people in the business community to do what Tatas or Ratan Tata wanted done. So the brand and ethicality is a subject, in a way, in the Tata Group we take for granted, but this dissertation of his is going to add a lot of value, certainly for consumer marketing. Apart from the book that talks about how to do a PhD. So it's a double whammy, He's done a PhD and then done a book on how to do a PhD. Well done, Ravi. We are very proud of you, not just as your classmates, but as a community of, business professionals. Keep up the good work. I wish you can transfer 10% of all that you said to someone like me. Thank you.
Thank you. As usual, great insights, thought-provoking. Now I request Santaram, before that, Mr. Bhaskar, if you are a golfer, you play golf, you don't have to worry, the PhD will be conferred on you. Mr. Santaram.
Thank you for accepting to host this. When I was, I think I also had very long conversation with Ravi when he asked me to read the book and say a few words about it. And he had already told me that he had got Bhaskar Bhatt. I said, you have Bhaskar Bhatt, why do you need anybody else? But he said, no, I need you also to add a few thoughts. And it's always a big challenge when someone asks you to say a few words about the book, because you have to read a lot of that. And as in corporate, we stopped reading things. And so it was a fairly big challenge. And but when I started reading this, I was really hooked on by what Ravi had done. I've always known Ravi to be a kind of a scholar practitioner. And I think whether it was in Crompton's or Bajaj Auto or TVS or Fenner or for that matter in the Amalgamations Group, I think he's always had this combination of consumer market behavior and putting that into a kind of a framework. And I could not have thought of anyone better than MMA, because just remember that this is IMA Aligam's AMU University, right? I think you're one of the 250 scholars who come out of this, and I was astonished by the fact that something in just 30 years you have 250 PhDs coming out of this effort by the All India Management Association and the Aligam Muslim University. You know, we all have a certain amount of, especially those who have done like undergraduation and from IIT, we had a certain discomfort or for that matter, disrespect for PhD in India. But I think this book dispelled everything about a work that you have to do for a PhD in India. I think the kind of thing that he talked about in the book, and if you read that, it's a very breezy read, and you can finish that in 2-3 hours, but then you have to go back repeatedly to be able to pick some lessons from that. And as he said, there are 211 lessons, and at the end of each chapter, there are 10 or 15 lessons, which are very, very relevant. And Rajni, my spouse, has always been interested in, she couldn't attend today, she was always interested in doing a PhD. And we have had this conversation in our home quite some time about what is it to be able to do a PhD. And we realized that there's a tremendous amount of challenges in a PhD. In fact, she went and met quite a few of the people, and at least 4 or 5 of the people whom she has met who had transitioned from a career into a PhD, 3 out of the 4 said that don't even go into it. I think your idea of a PhD, because in the corporate we have this wide-angled lens about anything, right? We are not particularly deep in any subject. We have a wide-angled view. But PhD is, and the discussion that I've had with Ravi, it's really narrowly focused. Either you take a deeply researched topic and go find a small gap in it and then try to add some value, an incremental value. It's a beginning of a journey. It's not an end point as what we think. So I think, almost everyone said that they've dissuaded, but after this conversation with you and the book, which he has also read a part of it, I think this is kind of given a certain hope that it's really possible to do something very interesting. So a couple of things is, I think if you go through this book, quite often we have these, a lot of finance for non-finance, AI for dummies and things like that. This is really a book written for smarts for being able to do a PhD. I think the kind of detail that he has gone through, and it's 7 years effort, and right, 2016 to 2023, and with, as Bhaskar said, it was interrupted by couple of years where Ravi was not very well, including during a period where he had to take his exam after the first 12 subjects, right? You had to complete? Yeah, 12 subjects. Okay. So one of the things is the path to a PhD is highly non-linear. It's kind of, you meander a little bit, you're not very sure how it is. But he has really made it very clear as to be, he said something there, once you choose a guide, you're wedded to the guide. And you actually don't realize that it's probably, you're lucky if you get the good guide, but if you happen to not get a good guide, and I've had several examples, including in my own family, if you don't get a good guide, you're in deep trouble, you can't change. And the second thing which was very interesting that when I went through this book was that you have to choose your title very carefully. A change of title is almost impossible. So therefore, when he talked about this whole thing, the influence of customer perceived ethicality on brand affect, perceived quality and brand equity, I was actually hooked onto it. I happened to be in a B2B company in Sangoma all my life. And therefore, the brand awareness of Sangoma and the perceived ethicality, all of that are very critical. And in the last 6 years, I happen to be working closely with Bhaskar iconic company, Titan, as an independent director. So this whole brand perception and customer perceived ethicality is a very crucial topic. And it is really something which Ravi honed in on, a big gap in India. I think this is a topic which is probably quite a lot of that has been done in the overseas. But in India, I think this is a very important gap. I don't think we have studied enough. We don't study enough in India of many of these research topics in any case. But this is a very important gap. How do I really between brand equity, brand loyalty, brand affinity, and what is the relationship between that and the ethical dimensions of consumer perception? I think this is really an important topic. In fact, after having read this, and I went through that again for coming for this, I see tremendous amount of opportunities for this to be spawning off a lot of studies on how is the brand perceptions and ethics and how are all of these are related. So therefore, there's quite a lot. And I think his work, in addition to the fact that it's like almost like a kind of a Bhagavad Gita or a Bible for anyone wanting to do a PhD. What should you do at the choosing a subject, choosing a guide, choosing an external guide. And in his case, he's had at least an initial external guide who seemed to have been outdated. And then he had to get another person who was not keen in involving himself. He had to change the external guide. And many of these are extremely difficult because it's not exactly a very a democratic, transparent process going through this PhD. You realize all of that, and only when you're gone through all of this, and someone like Ravi putting that out open tells you what all things that you'll have to prepare yourself for. So, I think I've written a lot in some of these things. The three key themes that resonate for me come from of this is really staying deeply immersed. And I think Ravi has been deeply immersed. It's really the starting point was a deep reflective survey that he worked on. I think literature survey. And later on he mentioned somewhere that he has quoted something like 250 to 300 papers in your thesis, right? Close to 250 to 300 papers or quoted references. Okay, so I think it's an extraordinary amount of sadhana, as what Bhaskar also referred to. I think the rigor and the routine that he advocates, getting up at 4:30, as Bhaskar had mentioned, just putting, really allocating time, they are not necessarily only good for someone who's going to do a mid-career PhD. It's good for any one of us. Okay, to be able to devote that kind of a time to stay immersed in the topic in a world of really fleeting attention. I think this book will give us back some hope that if you're really deeply immersed in something, you can really make a dramatic difference. The other thing which I was very happy is right through, I think what helped Ravi was staying connected with his extended network of friends, alma mater, whether it's IIT Madras, whether it's IMA, whether it's LIBA, or whether it is CESS, right? I think the Center for Economic and Social Studies. I think it is, what I liked about is he reached out whenever there was a roadblock. When he perceived a challenge with his guide, he had to reach out to his network. How many of us do that? I think in our work or in our life, sometimes we just are stuck. And staying connected and reaching out to the network to be able to unlock some of the difficulties that we face. I think this is something which really I learned a lot from this. The third one is really the staying organized. I think he's been extraordinarily disciplined. One of the things that he talks a lot about is, I think some of us who studied statistical methods and data analysis, and at least I studied it in 1978-79, and some of my classmates here, including Ravi, I think he talked a lot about owning the data, doing the analysis. And the kind of thing that he has done is really will send you goosebumps. I think he used to spend hours going through YouTube videos learning about statistical methods. He went and took tuition from Professor Raman, right? right, of the Madras University, if I'm not mistaken. I think he went and took tuition on how to apply, how to use the data, how to be statistically relevant. I think in every one of this, it is not just that all these are useful for doing a PhD, but the fact that many of this, the deep immersion, staying connected, staying organized right through, to be able to conclude something as interesting as this is really what stood out for me. Okay, I have actually two suggestions, and I hope that we will take this up. One, I think this is a must for any university. I do hope that the universities, and they have these initial 12 courses. I do hope that this book becomes a must read for any budding scholar, so that the person understands this whole path that has been deconstructed. Every single, it's a labyrinth. You will have many obstacles, and how do you overcome these obstacles? How do you prepare for yourself? I think so. I hope that it is done, and I hope that I've said to Ravi that I think you should digitize this book, because it's not relevant only for those who are aspiring to do a PhD. It's relevant for any one of us. I hope that can be done, and I'm sure that you'll be able to take the help from MMA, and I think many of the others would be interested in helping you with that. I think I plan to revisit this book. I think whenever I feel the urge to be able to do something more, definitely not a PhD, but at least where I have to study some subject in depth, I think I'm going to follow the Ravi's process that he has detailed out significantly. So I'm really hoping that this book, I think there are many books on this PhD. I think you'll see a lot of references in this thing. But this has really been crafted with a tremendous amount of dedication and discipline that's truly rare. I think wish Ravi and everyone who chooses to read this book, I think as you engage in your pursuit of scholarship and research, this can be really illuminating your path. Okay, so there's so many things that we can learn from this. I'm really looking forward to, I hope that this book is phenomenally successful. There are many people who benefit from that. I want to thank the MMA for, I called him up. I just sent him an SMS, and he said that it's definitely possible. We chose a date. Big boss Bhaskar has to be there. So he said that I'm only available between 4 and 8 on 19. We just said, okay, we chose this date, and the whole thing has worked out. Thank you. And I as I said, to get about 100 of them to come here, it's really Bhaskar, Ravi, and MMA pulling the people. And I noticed that both the IIT and IIM alumni also has helped us to get this. The only thing that I want to do is, the average age here is 65. Okay, right? The average, I think there are some who are maybe 50. Okay, that's supposed to be the youngest. I think we need to reach out to youngsters. If this book has to make a difference, because the other day I was talking to Professor Kamakodi and Bhaskar Ramamurthy, they said that there is a 50% drop in people applying for masters and PhD in India. There is a dramatic decline in the number of people coming to do PhD. So we need to do something, because I think we need these deep studies in order to illuminate and throw light, and these things do help a lot. It is not everything is practice. So I do hope that this book will trigger those kind of debates that will make more people take up PhDs if they are mid-career or if they're youngsters. Okay. Thank you, Ravi. Really looking forward to the success of this book.
Thank you, Mr. Santanam, for also recommending and choosing, convincing Ravi to host the thing. We are really delighted and privileged. While we have about 150 people watching it here, we have more than 461 people watching it online, sir. So I'm quite sure that a lot of young people are watching it, actually. I now request Mr. Dr. Ravichandran to share his thoughts, what made him write the book, and much more. Mr. Ravichandran.
President Sri Mahalingam, Chief Guests Bhaskar Bhatt and Santanam, the Evergreen Group Captain, Sri Vijay Kumar, distinguished guests in the audience, Mr. Chandramohan, President of TAFE, here in person as well as those who are attending the session online. At the outset, I extend my sincere thanks to those present here as well as those participating online. In the next 20 minutes or so, I will try and describe the essential features of the just launched book. The book is the story of my PhD journey, long and winding, frustrating, exhilarating, and elevating by turns. I believe that by sharing the experience may give some insight to others who are pursuing the same path. It is as much a practical and handy reference as it is a learning guide on the step-by-step process. It is a chronicle of the trying times as well as the enjoyable ones. It narrates an individual's journey as he struggles through unknown territory and navigated several crossroads, and outlines the way conflicts got resolved through diligent application of mind. I went to invite Professor Kamakoti, Director of IIT Madras. Unfortunately, I had to be in Bangalore today. He instantly understood the significance of the book. He asked me to deliver the keynote address for the valedictory session the very next day, 30th of March, to 600 odd research scholars from across the country who are attending their All India Research Scholars Summit. 30 copies of the book were awarded to the best presenters in that 4-day summit, jointly by the director and myself. I think probably the organizer of the event is also here with us today. Further, on the 15th of April, I had the honor of sharing the platform at Anna University at the launch of their biannual PhD Scholars Induction Program with over 1,000 participants both in person and online. The book was introduced to the audience by Professor Velraj, ex-VC of Anna University. There is an increasing demand from professionals and a curiosity to know what getting a PhD is all about and how it benefits one's career, self-actualization, and such superordinate goals. The book is a first-person narration of the 6 years I spent while working to obtain the doctoral degree. It is an experience guide to aspiring scholars, especially in the area of business management and social sciences. It is interspersed with several anecdotes, memes, and many learning blurbs that makes a difficult subject easy to read, and more than 200 learning points. Whenever a creative illustration makes you chuckle, you may know that it is a handiwork of Nitya Kalyani, the sole creative director of the task. The narration covers the complexities of the admission process, selecting the right institution, systemic challenges within institutions and roadblocks, and such generic subjects. Managing the 4 important pillars of life at the same time: job, career, family, health, and the PhD journey simultaneously. The need to reach out to a number of experts, publishing and the management of plagiarism, and the intricacies of the research process in all detail. The stalwarts who wrote the forewords and afterword for the book insisted they read the draft cover to cover before agreeing to do so. When I read through these, I was truly overwhelmed, as I did not seem to disappoint them, and nor did they. The reason I am stating this is that they almost summed it all up and made my today's task easy. While Professor Velraj is an academic researcher and scholar of big repute, Bhaskar and Santanam, between them, represent almost the entire landscape of the Indian industry. In addition, one of them served on the boards of 2 national academic institutes of repute. I must hasten to mention the 4 other top academics from various fields whose endorsements find a place in the book. An important aspect of the book is the lessons learned that punctuate each of the 14 chapters. To quote Bhaskar and Santanam, these distilled nuggets of wisdom, I like that expression of yours, offer practical guidance and reflect the hard-earned knowledge that comes only from lived experience. Wow. Language. Demystifying and illuminating each stage of the nonlinear path that so often confounds many aspiring scholars with specific lessons. All I had to do was cut and paste. Essential for navigating and ultimately succeeding in this complex endeavor. This book serves as an invaluable resource for anyone, be it a young mind at 26 or a seasoned leader at 60 embarking on their own path. The three themes that resonate throughout are stay immersed, stay organized, and stay connected. Santanam described to you in great detail about these three aspects. So I am skipping that. In fact, I thought I'll make it part of my speech. To quote further, it's a well-known fact that a huge number of scholars who begin their research do not complete their PhD. You see, this percentage can be a little controversial. I read somewhere that in the US it is 50%. But I took this point, more than 2 lakh people apply for a PhD in our country. And 25 to 35,000, depending on the source data, obtain their PhD. So that means there is a pipeline of people who are struggling with it. And the time period they take is what makes it the percentage so low. This first person narrative can be essential reading to such people. The lessons, when applied, can significantly amplify your efforts. The need for a nation that has knowledge as a comparative advantage is a much higher number than this. So this book serves as a national need. It is a must read for every PhD aspirant, both freshers and mid-career professionals who want to break out to pursue academics. What is clear is that there are factors of uncertainty, misguidance, intake quality, and many such unknown factors. The book illustrates all of these and much more. All these pearls of wisdom are not mine, but quote unquote, of those on the days. They have got to where they are by sheer hard work and application, and I salute them for what they are. One of the 14 chapters deals with publishing in scholarly journals, easily the most challenging task for a scholar. This is dealt with in great detail in the book. It was found between the years 2017 and 2019, a year after the rule for mandatory publishing was brought about, that around 75% of the articles published were published in non-Scopus index journals. This is in spite of the fact that 14,000 journals were listed as Scopus indexed in the area of humanities and social sciences alone. Predatory journals and middlemen have erupted unhindered. On the flip side, we need to recognize that the responsibility is equally on the side of the system and the processes involved. The book graphically deals with this subject in great detail. I must hasten to add that given the sensitivities of the people and the multitude of institutions involved, the narration had to consciously avoid any references that could be construed as pointing fingers. As far as I could judge, I have carefully navigated away from such remarks, while at the same time not sacrificing the basic facts, as otherwise there will be no worthwhile learning. This book talks more about the systems and processes involved rather than the individuals and institutions. Greater diligence is needed from the candidates who seem to walk into a PhD program with inadequate mental preparation. The book, in my opinion, acts as a valuable guide in this regard. No one book can possibly cover all ground. If this and similarly intended books can improve success rates, it would mean that they have served a definite purpose. In my 6-year journey, only 4 years were productive. The narration of the book is as much about the 4 productive years as about the other 2. What motivated me to take the effort and time to record my experiences was a desire that the challenges that I underwent may yield learning points to active working people who desire to walk this path, especially in the later stages of their lives. If the learnings enable better management of time schedules, reduction of delays, better understanding and clearer understanding and efficient uses of the processes, some purpose would be achieved. People working in business, industry, the bureaucracy, defense, and other fields seem to have a growing need to obtain a PhD and change the course of their careers midway. In some cases, a doctoral degree may enhance the potential of the candidate to do her job better. There are people who enjoy this beautiful process as a means of self-actualization. It may well be that each experience is different from the other. It may well be that some may have it easier and some tougher than my individual experience. Nevertheless, there are bound to be common learnings, which in short is the intention behind this book. On the whole, I feel every reader will relate to at least 2/3 of my experience, some relevant, some not so relevant. There could be some repetitions, but these are in different contexts and for emphasizing a learning point. It is as much about the people, the processes, and the support groups as it is about learning, application, dedication, and being alert and smart at the same time. The book is organized in 3 sections and 14 chapters, each of which deals with a specific area, scanning through the 6 years in a kind of a sequence. I intended that this should read like a story, relating my experience and challenges at several critical points in the long journey. The reader may look at it as mirroring her own situations or dilemmas. The book is not a substitute for learning various constituents of research such as literature review, types of research, research methodology, research design, sampling techniques, statistical tools, questionnaire design, understanding plagiarism, and everything else. There are prescribed textbooks that need to be systematically studied before a candidate goes about the major task of beginning to do her PhD. But it is unlikely that the insights that are shared here find a place in any of these standard textbooks on how to do research. Some approaches and strategies suggested here are simple to practice, and some need greater focus and application. The chairman of my management school, while mentioning the success rates, read the silence in the class and reminded us saying, "After all, you are aiming to get the highest degree, is it not?" He is one of the highly cited authors today, but went through a